by the time that we did get it, the scans that there was not going to be a cure. And then when we finally both had the presence of mind to just say, what is the prognosis, for them to say 12 to 18 months with treatment
Mm.
was sobering. Maria and I would have a very, very direct conversation, that where she would say, I'm okay with this. I'm not embracing it. I'm not rushing towards it,
Mhm.
but I accept that it's happening, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I need you to accept that. And I need you to promise me that you're going to move on, that the kids will move on, that, you know, that life doesn't stop because I'm not here. It took a little bit longer before we became parents. So, to then kind of feel like we had finally figured one thing out, to then be, brought to that challenge, it seemed like it was too much, you know? It was really one of those things where day by day we had to, kind of compartmentalize, everything within the day, everything within, the hour, and so on, for quite some time. Um, there are times where I still feel like I'm doing that, and it's been going on 2.5 years since she's passed.
Welcome to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. Every day, 562 children lose a parent to terminal illness. They shouldn't have to face that alone. You can pretend to avoid the painful realities of illness, grief, and death, or you can deal with the real stuff in caring community. On the podcast, people in Inheritance of Hope's community share raw, personal stories of pain, trials, and the shadow of death, which are also stories of joy in terminal illness. Find more Inheritance of Hope community at inheritanceofhope.org. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Inheritance of Hope podcast. My name is Ellie, and I'll be your host for today's episode. And I am joined by someone with a wonderful story that I'm excited to hear for the first time to this depth, and just excited for him to have the microphone. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Brian Spoon. I'm from northern Colorado, Loveland area in particular. And I first came to Inheritance of Hope after my wife of 21 years at the time had been diagnosed with stage 4 cholangiocarcinoma, or liver bile duct cancer. We had twins. They come in pairs. So, so there were two of them, just two children. I have Lucy and Helena are their names. They were 14 at the time. During our probably one of the more impactful visits with the oncologist after the diagnosis, where we were, going over prognosis and those sort of things. In roughly the same meeting was where Inheritance of Hope had been mentioned to us by our oncologist staff, just to say that, it was an organization that dealt with families in our position. Given a prognosis of roughly 12 to 18 months with treatment, it kind of felt like we really needed to make memories and kind of make sure that we were, planning for the now, taking advantage of the moments that we had, because there was a clock on it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, is one of those things that as you go through life, you until you're faced with something like that, you don't necessarily, tomorrow's always tomorrow until you don't know how many of those are going to be there. So, yeah, not really sure if that was the best introduction.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Yeah, we were just talking before we hit record here that about Aisha, who was a previous podcast guest, who's also in the Colorado area, and you've had some overlap with her and others who were previous podcast guests. So I'm glad that you can join us and share your insight, because, something I always say is every grief journey is different. Every person who faces trials it's going to look different. So really excited for you to kind of add your stories to the collection that we've kind of been building. And I know that, what you are going to have to share is going to resonate with some people in a really deep, impactful way. So yeah, I guess what was it like first getting that diagnosis and realizing, wow, this is not what we expected. And our life is going to look way different now.
Well, it kind of felt like, I'm going to say like you hit a wall, but then the wall crumbled and fell on top of you. So mm, it, there was a lot of silence initially. And I think reading on Maria's face in particular, the severity of it was, hardest for me. We kind of took a little while to get married in that we were both a little older than a lot of our peers that had been married. And along with that, we took a little bit longer before we became parents. So, to then kind of feel like we had finally figured one thing out to then be, you know, brought to that challenge, it seemed like it was too much. It was really one of those things where day by day we had to, kind of compartmentalize, everything within the day, everything within, the hour and so on for quite some time. There are times where I still feel like I'm doing that. And it's been, you know, almost 2.5 years now, going on 2.5 years since she's passed. Her diagnosis was middle of the summer of 2022. And we'd had all kinds of little weird things, that had happened with her for years before that. Various stomach issues, headaches, those kinds of things. And, no specific, pinpoint to anything on the diagnosis once we got to it. Was cholangiocarcinoma is one of the side effects of the surgery that she potential side effect of the surgery that she had 2 or 3 years prior to, but one of those very, very rare side effects that can occur. So we have no idea whether that's what did it, or if
Mm,
she had been symptomatic here and there, and the sphincterotomy that she had was really just another attempt to address symptoms that were already part of the disease.
yeah.
But by the time that we did get it, it was pretty clearly from a layman's, standpoint, looking at the scans that there was not going to be a cure, that we were going to be dealing with something systemic, and that chemotherapy or some sort of treatment was going to be necessary. And then when we finally both had the presence of mind to just say, what is the prognosis? And to say 12 to 18 months with treatment, um, was sobering,
Yeah.
was the word that they used. The CAT scan and was sobering. I just seems really apropos thinking back on it.
Mm,
So, at that point, we were immediately going to get into some form of chemotherapy just for pain management, because that's had been the biggest, biggest thing that we were having to battle at that point was getting her pain under control so that she could function, not just move comfortably, but like think. She was in a job working for University of Colorado in Boulder, had been doing academic advising for the engineering college and one of the other sciences college there, mainly for at-risk students. And these were students that hadn't gotten into their college of choice initially, but still got into CU, whether they be out of state or in state. And, we're just looking to get towards a specific goal. And she was helping to retain them as students to CU and move forward towards their goal, but, really to make sure that they were retained by the university. Ultimately, she had kind of gotten into some, focus with the diversity, equity, and inclusion through the university, both with staff as well as maintaining cohorts among the student population, so that they would have, better exposure, some more diversity within. engineering specifically seems to be, and this will be a surprise, somewhat male focused.
Mm.
And so trying to open that up for women as well as women of color. We're both pretty underserved for that college at the time. And I don't want to go speaking for the college because this is me very secondhand in conversations
Sure.
with my wife as she was excited about her job.
Mm-hmm.
And so then to kind of get presented with, all of those things that were finally going right and making her really happy professionally, to then kind of realize I'm not going to be able to do this anymore.
Mm.
I think that hurt both of us quite a bit. I was happy for her. She had, a lot of different, you know, working for a university, going to school she loved and helping other kids, go to school, really, really made her happy. And then to do that, in a way that she was helping people that might not be able to have those same advantages. Um, you know, she, was also mixed race. Father was not in the picture. It was just her and her mother for most of her life. And, so I think she really identified with a lot of those kids that,
Yeah.
were, putting loans on loans and, really, really dependent on what scholarships and financial aid was there. And to really kind of focus in on that social justice aspect of it, really felt like she was doing something that mattered.
Yeah.
So to then have to give that up due to illness was rough, very rough. I think she felt like she wasn't setting the right, or the not the right, but that she was missing an opportunity to set an example for our kids. Um, that I think that really hurt for her as well. So that diagnosis was a bit to swallow, and I think eventually we kind of, beyond just knowing it is inevitable, we're able to move forward and I don't know, make the best of really, really, really bad situation.
Yeah.
And Inheritance of Hope was very helpful with that for us. And after it was mentioned and they had talked about the legacy retreat, we were fortunate enough to go on to one of the first legacy retreats post COVID.
Mm.
So we went to Orlando in 2022, and our kids had been to Disneyland in California many years before, but going to Florida was something very new for them, and something we were very fortunate to be able to do. And then certainly in the way that those retreats are run, we would never have had those kinds of opportunities, those kinds of memories to be made,
Mm.
um, without Inheritance of Hope.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. That is, I feel like what you described is something, like I said, a lot of people will likely resonate with, of the idea that, like, yeah, you got married later, you had kids later, now you're like in this sweet spot, both as a family and then where she was at in her career is just like the sweet spot of getting excited and then kind of just getting bulldozed over with something so out of your control. I feel like that ache of like, why does it have to be this way? Or like, why now? A good description of it is an ache, I think, of just this, what is going on? And I know you
Yeah.
guys are not alone in that, honestly.
Oh, no.
Hmm.
I think that's, with the caregivers group and the life after loss group, both, that's a pretty common sentiment, across the board from everybody.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to, whether it be, Hope at Home um, retreats or, a retreat in person, a lot of those, breakout groups where you really are kind of, I mean, it's almost trite to say people get it,
Uh-huh.
and it's only trite because I've been doing it for a while with the Terrence Hope. But, it's so incredibly true, you know, when you can speak with somebody that is in your position that identifies with it, it's different than trying to explain it to somebody who has no frame of reference.
Yeah.
You really can, like, you're releasing a burden, when you share the story.
Yes. And that's something too I was wondering about is with that specific type of cancer, it feels very specific. Like just even by the name of it, you
Extremely.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like? Because I know we work with a lot of families who have glioblastoma, metastatic breast cancer, some of like the bigger name
Uh-huh.
diagnoses. What was it like for your family to receive something that maybe you knew like not a lot of people would understand what's at play,
Yeah.
the specific.
Well, I mean, first, it took me a couple of weeks to actually be able to pronounce it.
Okay.
And then to remember how to pronounce it, let
Hmm.
alone write it out, spell it, or explain it to anybody. But this is essentially your bile duct system, your endocrine system, similar to pancreatic cancer. Is probably better known, but just a different part of the system, different types of cells. But the big thing that both of them have in common with any gastrointestinal GI cancer is the level of pain that
Mm,
person has to go through. You think about when you've got a really, really bad case of if you've ever had food poisoning
mm,
and that the entire center of your body just decides to revolt. That's a GI cancer. And I may be
mm,
oversimplifying that, but that is in essence what those patients, what Maria was living with, to the point where some of the palliative care medication, not to address anything from chemotherapy, even for chemotherapy, the palliative care level of opioids that would typically go into her system, and the fact that it kept ramping up was stunning, scary.
mhm.
Being up on the medication was not something I think she was really able to manage, but we had found ways in making sure my conversations with her palliative team, and ways to kind of organize this for both of us, so that she had to put as little thought into it as possible. So I mean, she was in treatment for, wow, almost almost exactly a year before she passed. Diagnosis to when she passed away.
Mm.
And during that time, that was just trying to keep organized was our biggest battle for a lot of that.
Well, the word that comes to mind as you're sharing that is just suffering. Like that level of pain and discomfort, that is so heavy. And I'm so sorry that Maria had to go through that. But then also by extension, like you had to go through that. Your girls had to go through that.
Yeah. That the kids had to experience that. And the way that they reacted to mom, and when she was in pain, their ability, they were 14, which I feel really sorry for them that all of that had to happen during some pretty significant moments of development in their life. They were just getting ready to start high school.
Mm.
It's like, so that means a new school. And they knew some of the people, but there are a lot of new people, and it was a new building and new teachers, and this is scary. Oh yeah, and mom's got cancer too.
Right.
Oh, for them to witness all of that at the times that they did, I just I think I may have become a little bit too permissive as a parent. But yeah, I think suffering is a good way to put that, for all of us. It was, I think, you experience some things and you say that was tough. For me, it was about 8 years prior to that. And my mother had passed away from metastatic breast cancer. The kids, were 3 when she passed away. So, with my mom and what they remember of Mama, she was sick.
Mhm.
We had, planned, a good trip for my sister and her boys and her husband, came up, and we took a nice road trip with their family and mom and dad and our family. And so my mom, having, really a terminal diagnosis at that point, was going to have a hip replacement because of some of the deterioration. It had metastasized into her bones and femur and the pelvic. bone as well. Maria on that trip, not being sick, really internalized some of the misery that my mother had been going through, trying to maintain a brave face for the kids and everybody else, and let's all go have one last vacation together
Mm.
as we go out and have fun and do this nice railroad that doesn't have a bathroom. And let's go play around on these sand dunes in July in
Ah.
southern Colorado. And all of these things that, thinking back on it, I kind of feel like the kids had a great time. My dad had a great time. I enjoyed it. I got some great pictures, but, one thing that is kind of missing in a lot of those now, thinking back to it 15 years later, 16, 17 years later, there weren't a lot of pictures with mom in there because she was off. And, there were some with Maria, but Maria was usually helping. So
Mm.
that was one of the things that that memory stuck with her as well as me in just understanding these are the things I don't want to do. I understand it saw that much, from your mom as she was just kind of maintaining for everybody else. It's like, I don't want to be there for that.
Mhm.
So I think, understanding, the pain that my mom went through, was something that she, I don't know, put her foot down on, these are the things we're going to do. I don't want to go, do something and then, want to hide. I feel like I have to hide away so that people aren't traumatized.
Mhm.
Um, Not that I want to traumatize anybody, but we want to kind of set some of those boundaries maybe so that I'm not going through that and we can all be part of the same thing.
Mhm.
And the trip to Orlando with the volunteers really made that possible. The kids to go off with somebody and just have fun on that ride instead of worrying about the 3 rides mom's going to be comfortable on.
Yeah.
That was good. Being able to, realize that she's okay, sitting there and, talking with the volunteers, who were on a mission to find us churros of all things. But, yeah, the suffering was definitely there. It was something that she was prepared for and beyond, the pain medication, was medicated to kind of help her state of mind through that up until, the time we went to hospice and she kind of felt, for herself that she wasn't really facing this the same way that she should have. That there was a certain part of her that was still in denial about dying
Hmm.
until she had kind of pulled herself away from some of the anti-depressant medication to feel it. It's like this I need to
Yeah.
accept it. In the face of that, some of the conversations that she had with me, with her mother, with, several friends, in that last month or so, she couldn't do that and be numb to it. She had to feel regret's the wrong word, but, the what am I going to miss kind of things.
Yeah.
I, then 15, the kids were still a little young to have heard that in a direct conversation like that. Like Maria and I would have a very, very direct conversation, that where she would say, I'm okay with this. I'm not embracing it. I'm not rushing towards it,
Mhm.
but I accept that it's happening and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I need you to accept that. And I need you to promise me that you're going to move on, that the kids will move on, that, we're, that life doesn't stop because I'm not here.
Mm.
And I hope that that have the same presence of mind if I'm facing that sometime in the future. I
Mm.
admire her strength and her ability to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the impossible task for Maria and then for all of you of, like, Maria coming to terms with, like, "This is happening." I don't
Mhm.
have to be happy about it or feel comfortable with it, but, like, I'm settled with the fact that this is happening, and then the impossible task for, you to hear and then implement. What does it look like to move on
Yeah.
after you lose your person? And for your kids to do the same.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Well, we also had to set our own goals on that. But, with the kids, they need to move on and continue with school. We did, after knowing about the diagnosis, one of my, first things that I did was reach out, to the counselor at the school, to let them know, you've got a pair of kids they're coming in with some baggage this year. Not only are they starting this, into the unknown with high school, but, they're doing this, faced with a parent that has cancer and probably won't be there for graduation. And so they got to know us all pretty well right away. Um, and that continued, obviously, to start school. And then the next year, to start school, having lost their mother. It was just kind of hit after hit, you know. So we've been able to, move on from there. But I think that, it marked them a little bit too, in just kind of being hyper aware of everyone else. Helena in particular, seemed to be very keyed into to me and what I was doing. I'll admit that, I was not exactly the healthiest person. Just a picture of health now. I'm only 50 pounds overweight, but no, at the time, I was probably drinking more than I should have. Not, problematic, but it was, a little bit of, self-medication, at night when everyone else had gone to bed, I would have a few more drinks before I could really feel like I could shut my head off and go to sleep myself. And along with that, I was smoking, which was, really, really great. Your wife has cancer. Let's continue your smoking habit. So, needless to say, when Maria was gone, that Helen in particular was the one to just kind of go, you know what, Dad, I can't sleep because we've lost mom, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was not one conversation, but several. Hints dropped and that kind of thing. Because how often at 15 are you able to go to your dad directly and just say, "I'm scared you're going to die," but I got the message. And cleaned everything up, and I've been smoke free for now 2 years. This year, at the end of this last year, I had my own diagnosis with renal cancer. So thankfully, that was something they had completely asymptomatic. I had been doing some other screening because I a smoker for so many years. They were doing chest CTs on me every year. And, this particular one, I sat on the scanner a different way and they noticed a pretty large tumor above my right kidney. So in February of this last year, they had to remove the kidney and the tumor. But, now I'm cancer free, but monitoring, every 6 months, and it wasn't, anything that any one of us, you know, expected. Certainly not. We've already lost mom. We've already lost my wife. Why would anything else bad happen?
Mm.
But, so far we're doing, well with that. But that was going through that second diagnosis and then wrecking my brain over, how do I share this with them? They're a little older now.
Mm.
They've been through this one before. Doesn't make this easier. But, when we had an idea of what the treatment was going to be, sitting them down, similar to how we sat down, when mom had the diagnosis to say, here's what's going on. I need to be honest with you about this. It's like,
Yeah.
but everything looks like it's going to be good.
Mm.
But I have a feeling that if I were to light a cigarette in Helena's presence, I wouldn't have to worry about the cancer getting me.
She would come after you.
Exactly.
That's so brave of her to share that with you, and knowing that it's coming from a place of love and concern and just wanting the stability of like having your caregiver around and being healthy. And also I feel like there's that tension there that I've heard from many people on this podcast. Like I don't know if you know Miguel Tolentino or Bill Kerner or some of these other guys sharing what it's been like to be a caregiver. And, not all of them have lost their spouse. Some of them have, but what it looks like to show up not only for yourself, but for your kids too. Having to balance okay, the drive to maybe numb or self-medicate
Mhm.
and comfort yourself and almost protect yourself from that pain. And also knowing you have to show up as as a caregiver still, and you still got kids, who need you maybe now more than ever, and that it's a heavy load for sure.
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like too much.
Yeah.
And, I think with the, support groups that Inheritance of Hope has, does really help to ease that burden quite a bit, especially when you hear stories like Bill. And Miguel, I do know, from the calls, but I don't think we've been on a lot of the same ones.
Okay.
But, Bill in particular, ALS is just, I have such incredible respect with everything that, Bill has gone through personally, even before his wife's diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hear that, and Bill's on the other side of it, still a little raw,
Mm-hmm.
still working through things, but, he's there. That gives me strength.
Facing terminal illness is difficult enough, but you don't have to go through it alone. Whether you're at home, in a hospital bed, or on the road, join us. We are a community of people that get it. Find the connection, support, and hope you deserve. Because when you don't know where to turn, you can always find hope at home. So don't waste another second. Sign up today. Hope is waiting for you at inheritanceofhope.org.
Because my journey wasn't anywhere near as that hard. I can embrace the suck.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
can definitely, I can take my portion of this.
Yeah. Well, I love that these online support groups have been a safe place to go to and experience community and other people who understand a similar journey. And one thing we talk about a lot, in the groups or just as Inheritance of Hope in general, is the concept of JARO. I don't know if you've heard that, but joy in sorrow.
Yeah.
And the tension of this is so hard. And there's still beauty. You have to look for it a little bit harder. It's maybe not as obvious.
You've got to pay attention is what it
Yes.
is. You've got to pay attention, and you've got to kind of put yourself in a mindset that, that goes beyond everything is horrible. You have to open yourself up, look for it to find that joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think personally, that's how I've survived a lot of it, is just saying, okay, yeah, that's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah.
But that little silver lining right there, that's what I'm going to focus on today,
Mm-hmm.
so that I can get to tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of, your mindsets, your insights have been really hard earned. Like you probably learned these things the hard way or through the fire. So
Mhm.
I guess what would you tell someone in the caregiver position or maybe just lost their person? What lessons have you learned the hard way that you want to share with other people now that you have the microphone?
Remember, you're not alone. There's always somebody, no matter how alone you feel in that moment, there's always somebody to talk to. If not in, your immediate family, if that support group isn't there, I would really hope that, whatever healthcare team you have, has got somebody that you can talk to. Really, what you have to do is ask. And that can be probably one of the harder things, is asking, learning to ask, being willing to, set aside whatever pride you have to or need to ask for help. But, you're not alone. And I think once you come to that realization, things start to look a little bit brighter. Even just by, half a lumen,
Mm-hmm.
it gets a little bit brighter.
Yeah. And that's so hard to keep in mind when you're in the midst of suffering. But I think having the people around you who understand what it's like, joining a Hope at Home group sounds like it's offered some of that for you, of
Yes.
getting to share a story and not have to explain the context and like have to go into all the details because all these other people really understand and have their own version of these stories and know that they're right alongside you and they understand the tension of like wanting to drink too many beers and also recognizing like they're going to be people to like lovingly share, hey, maybe we need to look at this and like we still need to be healthy in this, but like validating the pain of like why we are drawn to self-medicate essentially.
Yeah. Well, and maybe even kind of helping you to find another outlet, by example, but by something other than, scolding or,
Right.
you
Yes.
know,
No shaming. And that's the thing,
right.
because like people understand. They're probably not going to be the ones to be like, oh, you really shouldn't do that. They're going to be like, I get it.
Yeah.
And let's look
They're
at
they're
it.
definitely the ones that know that by, oh, you really shouldn't do that means I've stopped listening to you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I guess what would you tell someone who is maybe hesitant to join the Inheritance of Hope community, whether that's as someone to join as a family served, a volunteer, a donor, in any capacity, really? What would your invitation sound like?
As a family to be served, I could not fathom the resistance because it's just an organization there that has been nothing short of inviting. It's just open arms doesn't quite encompass it, but they're just there to help. And once you get there, all of the different community that you have, through the fellow caregivers to kind of help soothe some of that ache, But for volunteers, I mean, there are going to be some tough stories that you would hear, really tough stories. It's just sitting and listening is really something that is all that most people need. If you're at least able to do that, then as a volunteer, I think you would be able to do good. As a donor, I can think of, certainly all kinds of other, places you could give your money. But, when you give to the Humane Society, you're giving with a lot of other people. It's pretty open. But, you think about, the families that are served with this and, a kid that's going to lose their mom at 5, those memories that kid's going to have of, Disney Dollywood or whatever, and just, that mom got to go as we had this incredible time and mom was there, dad was there. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And I can only say from really the receiving end on that and having been, someone that's been part of the groups and offered an ear, to people who have, recently, started their journey with a terminal illness or, as a widower.
562 children will lose a parent to terminal illness today. That's 562 families facing heartbreak, fear, and uncertainty. They shouldn't have to face it alone. At Inheritance of Hope, we help families find moments of joy, hope, and lasting memories, even in the midst of terminal illness. This Thanks Plus Giving season, your gift does more than just bring comfort. It's matched dollar for dollar, doubling your impact. Together, we can make sure no child walks this journey without support. Give joy in terminal illness. Visit inheritanceofhope.org to make your matched gift now.
Yeah, that's perfect. And one thing too, I think I remember Maria did make a legacy video. Is that correct?
That was actually kind of a difficult one. We did, and I say we did because she was second line treatment, and the second line treatment had some pretty severe side effects with neuropathy that was cold induced, and we started that in January in Colorado. And the neuropathy really kind of took a lot of her voice with her to where she wasn't able to speak in much more than a whisper. She just could not project through her larynx to give voice to much beyond a whisper. So by the time we had gotten to the legacy video, I was there kind of, you were talking together with a lot of this than necessarily her getting to tell her story alone. And I think that was really kind of before she felt like she didn't feel like she had the strength to sit down when she had the voice
Mm.
to, I guess, deliver a one-on-one message through video of, I'm gone now, and here are all the life lessons that you need to learn,
Mhm.
as opposed to just sitting down and telling a story, which is what we ended up doing a lot more about. It was in the story of mom and dad, so
Mm.
so we were able to do it. Yes,
Yeah. Have you
I
watched Okay.
I have, and I tried to watch it again, and I just couldn't quite get in there to do it. Helena and Lucy have not seen it yet, and that's something that as we've gone along through our journey in all of this, one of my thing that Helena or that Maria and I, tried to we wanted them to tell us what they were ready for.
Yeah.
We didn't want to force something on them that would feel traumatic or be
Mhm.
remembered as traumatic later. That they had to be the one that they had the choice to do it or not.
Mhm.
So they have an inbox full of emails from their mother's friends
Mm.
and friends of both of ours, stories about her. So that's in an email box on a Gmail or on a Google server.
Mm.
Check every now and then just to make sure it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of journals that are all very stages of complete and incomplete. It might be helpful for me someday to go through and maybe consolidate that, but they still haven't. I've been asked a couple of times, we still have those, right? I'm like, I'm
Mm.
not throwing them away. They're in this box right over here. And the video fits into that as well.
Yeah.
That's here. Here's the card with the access information.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
you know, there's still, we just October was, birthday. And then July was, her the death. So, we get through, various landmarks and now we're going into the holidays and it's,
Yeah.
same thing for you remember that one Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And so that makes it difficult to embrace those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like legacy can feel very complicated with a lot of emotions attached to it because we have some people who are like, the legacy video is the best thing that I own. I'm so grateful for it. And other people who are like, I don't want to touch it yet. I actually had a guest on the podcast, Shelby, and she was like, I was so hesitant to watch my mom's legacy video. And she didn't for years because she was like, then that would have been the last first thing that I had with my mom. Like the first time ever watching this video of her mom. And that would be like the last first thing that she would have.
Uh,
And so I think what you just shared is so accurate to like how legacy feels sometimes because it might not be like the best thing that you own and you still might be really grateful that you own it because someday, when the girls want to watch the video, they have access to like their mom's voice and her stories and everything. And that's okay if it's not right now. Like it
yeah.
needs the breathing room and the time, and that's okay.
What if you could leave behind your voice, your laugh, your love, all in your own words? Inheritance Hope Legacy Video Service gives you a priceless opportunity to share what matters most with your loved ones. With a legacy video coach handling all the logistics online, you create a lasting treasure for your family, one that's edited, securely backed up, and easy to share. It's completely free thanks to generous donors. Start your legacy video today at inheritancehope.org.
Well, we always end every episode with the same question is whose life or death or legacy has impacted you in the way that you carry on their legacy with you?
And I knew this question was coming, but presented with it sometimes can be challenging because their answers that seem trite in the moment. But I'd mentioned my mother before. I mean, and my parents both, but mom in particular, given she was really, really strong woman.
Mm.
And, that was I think that I married a woman that was a lot like her, Maria. And so I'd say that not that my dad was a poor parent, but I think I kind of model a little bit more of my own parenting as we kind of figure it out by the seat of our pants,
Mm-hmm.
More after my mom and, than my dad. So yeah, I'd kind of say that as far as what I do professionally, what I do personally, with my kids, that's probably my strongest influence.
Mm, I love that. And even how you married someone like your mom, and so you had these
Mhm.
two very, like, strong women who were great influences on your life and just left an impact on you. I love that.
Indelible.
Mm.
Indelible.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and sharing your story and just being vulnerable so that people listening to this will hear it and think, me too. This feels similar to my story and hopefully make people feel a little less alone, like you touched on earlier. I think
I hope so.
your story is very powerful, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maria filled the rooms with colors she mixed by hand. Clay spinning slow on the wheel while the kids would stand right by her elbows, laughing when she'd hum off key in the car. Windows down, her voice carrying farther than ours. She kept her heart open for folks left outside the crowd. Spoke up when others stayed still, steady and proud. She held the three of you close like a small town choir. Every brushstroke, every stand she took lit something higher. Brian still pauses sometimes when he walks past her chair, as if she might look up with that thoughtful stare. She would have traded anything just to watch the kids grow, to see what Helena and Lucy bring into the world. They'll know, and when they fill page after page with the things they feel inside, their lines carry not only sorrow, but the love she left behind. Ooh. Helena stitches little bunny badges for friends at school. The kind of quiet kindness Maria thought was cool. Lucy draws chalk across the sidewalk, colors stretching long, patterns she picked up from her mom's old songs. Brian folds her coats by the door the way she used to do, holding on to small habits that help him get through. They'll still watch Doctor Who on Christmas, lights low in the den, and head to Denver each year for Comic-Con again. But they'll miss her steady hand shaping outfits just right, pins in her teeth, joking through the night. Still they're learning how to carry the things she gave, in the gentle ways they gather, in the small joys they say. She would have traded anything just to watch the kids grow, to see what Helena and Lucy bring into the world. They'll know, and when they fill page after page with the things they feel inside, their lines carry not only sorrow, but the love she left behind. Some days the house is quiet, some days it hums with glue sticks, chalk dust, thread on their thumbs. Brian keeps their coats by the door like she used to do, holding on to the warmth that still runs through. She would have traded anything just to watch the kids grow, to see what say the things she still stirs.